Let's take the case of green, white, and gray and really talk about this as the differentiator, what that means, particularly in healthcare. So I'm going to walk you through what this looks like in Qlik, and then what this looks like in a competitive DataViz tool that many of you are probably aware of. We'll start at the Qlik playground. There's this great little area called Learn, and Noobs start here, and it has a healthcare example. So we're going to go there. Talks about what makes Qlik tick. Really, it's the differentiator on the associative experience. I wouldn't even call it kicks. Don't talk about the engine. They don't really care. Our secret sauce is that we show you data in ways that you can't see it normally. And so if we take this example of these four list boxes, doctors, patients, drugs, and costs, the question that might come up is which doctors are prescribing only expensive medications. One way is, to look at expensive, and we'll see these are the doctors that definitely do prescribe. And these doctors here, Dr. Dre, Dr. Phil, Dr. Strangelove, that are grayed out because we're looking at expensive costing drugs. These doctors, you can tell, do not prescribe expensive drugs. But we want to figure out who only prescribes expensive drugs. A different way of asking that question would be, show me the doctors that do not prescribe cheap drugs. And the answer is right here in the gray. Dr. No and Dr. Rumack do not give drugs that are cheap to their patients. You also see, as you'd expect, which drugs are cheap drugs. These ones, by process of elimination, are the expensive drugs in the gray. So a lot of rich information. What does this look like in a different tool, and why can't anybody else do what we do at Qlik? Let's take a look at Tableau. I pulled in the same four list boxes and the same data set, and we see all the doctors, their patients, the drugs, and the costs. We'll start it the same way. Tell me all of the doctors that work with cheap drugs. As soon as I click something off, you see all my data disappears for one. But here are the doctors that prescribe cheap drugs. That's good. But what happened to that list of all the other doctors that do not prescribe cheap drugs? If I click on all, you'll see that list grows. There's Dr. Rumack and Dr. No are in that list. But I can't answer that question of the doctors that do not prescribe cheap drugs. I could look at the other side, the expensive side, and I see a list of these doctors, but I don't know if these also prescribe cheap drugs. You just can't get that answer out of Tableau. You also will note that when I choose cheap, it only shows me cheap drugs. I don't know which ones might be out there in my system. So you're really limited to what you're clicking on and looking at. And this is the major differentiator. If we stack these guys side by side, I've chosen cheap. I see the drugs. They're up here in white. That's what they see. Tableau cannot see the gray. They're just gone. You're missing data. Same thing, Dr. No and Dr. Rumack are gone. This is the true power of what Qlik is in its essence, of an associative engine that shows you all of your data, the whole story. That's the first part, and that's only the story that you that you need to know. If you want to see how I built this particular viz in Tableau, we'll walk through from scratch. So this is extra. You don't necessarily need this. I'm doing this as a little part of education to figure out how to do this stuff. So first thing, blank canvas. We're going to add some data in, a new data source, just like you expect. In Qlik, we can drag and drop from somewhere, so I have that nice file. I'll just drop it on here. Goes through, reads the data, gives you the preview. Doctors, patients, drugs, and costs. Looks like it has everything, cheap and expensive drugs all in there. And I'll start building it out. I'm going to add these four things here, but I'll do them in order. So it's doctors, patients, drugs, and cost. Builds a little table for me. Not bad. But we want to see these as filters, so I'm going to right click each one, show filter, show filter, show filter, show filter. seam along the side here. We'll just make that a little bit wider. You can arrange these a little differently. So we'll get something that's kind of comparable. I think cost was on this side. Doctors, patients, drugs, costs. Now the thing is, none of this is wired together automatically. If I choose cheap drugs, I mean, it shows my data there, but it doesn't do anything to the filters. Does this mean that when I select cheap that all of these drugs are cheap? We know that from Qlik, these last three are the expensive meds. Just go back and show you. Which drugs are expensive? Dreamy Sleepy, Flintstones, and Locaine. I'm choosing cheap, and I don't even get that answer. So what you have to do in Tableau, you have to wire things together. There are shortcuts to this, I'm sure, but the way I know to do it is do this little drop down and say only relevant values, and I'll do these on these 4 list boxes or filters. That's what it takes to get to the green, white, and gray, which we do automatically as soon as you pull in data in Qlik, and this is how you can see it in Tableau that they're relevant. But again, it cannot show you the gray. It's only the green and the white, basically. There's tremendous power in that gray, so use that, leverage that. There's all kinds of stories you can build off of this, providing them access to just this simple page on Playground under the Noob section, and walk through different stories that you might have. See all the things that you can answer without visualizations. It isn't about vizzes. It isn't about pretty pictures, eye candy. That stuff is useful to attract people, but it isn't where the power of our platform is, and it definitely is a weakness in every other competitive product that's out there.